Welcome to the podcast, What's the Rant? We are your hosts, Joydeep and Shagota. I am Joydeep Banerjee. I am a software engineer by profession. As part of my day job, I create softwares for a company called JSAT. And we also have with us Shagota Roy Chaudhary. Shagota, if you can introduce yourself quickly.
Hello everyone. So myself, Shagoto. I'm working also as a software engineer. So I'm currently working as a senior consultant with Tech Mahindra. And yeah, we are trying our luck with our first YouTube podcast, and let's see how it goes. Wish us luck. Let's go, Jolly.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Shagota. Um, so What's the Rant is our attempt to create conversations, to create discourse around societal topics, which make, shape, and break our reality every day, right? As software engineers, we are technologists, right? So our take is how we can solve problems in society today using technology and beyond, right? We will attempt to spark conversations, debates, discourse around topics that we discuss in our podcast, and we'll make sure that we bring as much facts to you as possible, and also would really urge you to participate in the conversations in the chat section, right? So with that, I think we should start our first topic of the day, right?
Sure.
And the
Yeah.
first topic of our podcast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the topic is it's a topical issue, which is
Yeah.
AI fairness and implicit biases in a polarized society, right?
Yeah.
And now there are a few things. If we break down this whole topic, there are a few things that are seminal here, right? One is AI, one is AI bias, and one is polarized society. So we'll start.
Yeah.
We'll first understand what AI is and how this is, so important. And the other part is implicit biases. So we will understand how AI is actually becoming so biased, right?
Yeah.
And
So before going into that, so shall we not discuss about why did we choose this topic?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. So you want to take that?
Yeah. You can carry on. I'll
Okay.
go on yeah. Sure.
Yes, yes. So uh, AI is kind of everywhere right now, right? And it's proliferating everything that we can see today, right? Be it our home, be it uh, you know our healthcare system, be our HR system, be it our schools, colleges, um, everywhere you can think of, right? So AI is everywhere, and it will only grow as we speak, right? It'll only grow in the days to come. But the point is, how can we improve it, right? And also what kind of effects it can have if we sort of let it be, if it you know is left unchecked, what kind of problems are we going to face. So that's what we want to sort of highlight in this podcast, right? um, Now, why we bring this topic, because already there are cases that have been
Yeah.
come to the fore,
Identified. Yeah.
uh, and um, and people are suffering already. There's a distinct bias, a discrimination that is already uh, being noticed in many AI systems rather, and
Yeah.
that's a cause of concern, right? And that's what we want to highlight in this podcast. Um, so what is AI actually? So to my mind, I would try to give my understanding of what AI is, and how if we can obviously
Yeah. Yeah.
jump
Sure.
in. So AI is an attempt, a technology um to create machines or systems that um, are intelligent by themselves, right? You don't have to actually tell them what to do. They will know
Right.
what to do. So they will face situations when they go out in the world, when they face situations in the world, they will um, take actions of their own volition with the kind of knowledge they have So it's not doesn't have to be always supervised by um, sort of sort of instructions that the humans generally provide to different software systems. It will act on its own. So that was the kind of attempt um, behind creating AI systems.
Right.
Do you concur?
Yeah, of course. See, if as far as my understanding, I see that AI was created to like make our lives easier, to be on the first place.
Exactly.
So today we live in a world of data, and the more data we process, the more control we have on how we can utilize them for the betterment of the humankind. And
Correct.
AI is helping us with that.
Exactly.
So AI is basically something which I'd say that I mean, for us, for a human, it will take a lot of time to process all such huge amount of data. So we can just train a system, a computer, or anything, something like that, to recognize a pattern and take decision based on that without human supervision. So that is AI.
Exactly. So generally what happens is when we create software systems, we generally give some instructions to the software systems and
Yeah,
they act accordingly.
right.
So we wanted to avoid that because it is not always possible or it's not always efficient
Yeah,
to create software systems with a given set of instructions. Um, you would want systems to act based on the situations they're facing, based on the problems they're facing, because the world
right.
they are in are quite uh, different, are quite changing. So it's not always possible for any developer to think of every possible scenario that the
Exactly.
system will be facing when it's out in the world. So there came the concept of AI or self-learning, right?
Correct.
If a system can learn by itself
Yeah,
by learning from its environment,
yeah,
learning from all the data it's gathering, all the information it's gathering, I think that was a great thought in the first place, right?
yeah.
And we are seeing that happening, you know, everywhere now, and it's happening at a rapid speed, and that's where I guess the concern is, right? It's happening at
Correct.
such a neck break speed that often certain consideration that need to be put into place uh,
Yeah,
in, are not in place, right? So that's where
right.
I think that's where this
Yeah,
one
yeah,
will highlight on. So what are
yeah.
the things that we are seeing, you know, happening around the world in
Yeah,
different, and what are the solutions that are being taken or can be taken,
right.
right? Can we discuss first on how these AI systems are actually built and what is the sort of the philosophy or the um, a kind of the the flow that goes into building AI system, right?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Um, so generally, uh, AI systems,
Let's start with a very simple example,
yes, exactly. So
like face recognition software.
yes, exactly. Um, so one of the instances, AI systems are heavily used for is uh, to recognize faces, right? So how this AI systems can even recognize faces, right? How
Yeah,
that when you show it a picture, how does it know that there is a human in the picture, or
right.
an animal in the picture, or a table in the picture, or
Yeah,
water bottle in the picture, right?
right.
Um, it knows from the data that it has learned from,
Correct.
right? So it has been fed with a lot of data beforehand. Uh, with a lot of pictures of water bottles,
Yeah,
tables,
yeah.
humans, animals, um, reptiles, and everything that you can think of possibly in the world.
Exactly. Yeah,
It is fed with a lot of data. And from that data, it learns. It
yeah.
learns what is what.
Correct.
Right?
It learns to segregate. So more diverse the data will be, the more better it will learn to segregate.
Exactly. And also, it depends on how best we are labeling uh, those data.
Right.
So when we are sort of training this AI model, so to speak,
Yes.
as the parlance uh, is in AI
supervised learning
Yeah,
or unsupervised learning. Yeah.
we call it learning or training a model, right?
Yes.
Um, so so when it's trained on different data, we have to label them, right? So if you're sort of training them on pictures of furnitures, you have to tell them this is a table, this is a chair,
Yes. Yeah.
this is a clock, or
Yeah.
this is that, this is this, and so that it knows, right? If you tell uh, showing it a table, and you label it as a chair, it will know it's a chair. So it will, when it's out in the world and it sees a table, it will say, yeah, this is a chair. So
Yeah, there's a very popular meme viral in the market. I remember suddenly in this context that if you do not label your data properly, sometimes AI cannot differentiate between a blueberry muffin and the Chihuahua face.
exactly. So yeah, I mean it's kind of very synonymous with, or analogous with, how a kid learns
Exactly.
things
Yes.
in the world, right? So as
Yeah. Yeah.
parents, when we or guardians, as when we teach a kid
Yeah.
to navigate different things, right? So when we teach them that this is what is called called water, called
Yeah.
ice, called paper, called book, called pencil, called pen. This is how you write. This is a bad thing. This is a good thing. And how we teach them is how they learn, right?
Exactly. A
And
child is not born with a prejudice from his or her birth. It is
exactly,
how he or her is being brought up and his environment that causes prejudice.
exactly, and that's a very good point. So that's a nice segue there. So like we are saying that what you teach them is what they learn. So if you're teaching
Exactly.
them bad things,
Yeah,
if whatever is being taught to a kid are all the vices, then it will only learn the vices,
exactly.
right? So that's what's happening with many AI systems. The data that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
fed to it as is source of learning is bad, right? It's
right,
already bad. The historical data that's being produced through history um,
right, right.
are, are inherently bad, are
Yeah, yeah,
inherently corrupt, and that's what's getting into the CI systems unfiltered often, right?
correct.
And that's what's
And it may not be always intentional. It may sometimes be getting injected in subconscious of the trainer.
exactly. And we are sort of touching on very critical points here. So
Yeah,
why are these actually happening, right? And why,
right,
how can we sort of stop these things from happening?
correct.
So we will discuss all of those. I think it's best
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we discuss a few examples.
Few examples. Yes, yes. That will be easier for the audience to connect.
Yeah, exactly. So what's exactly happening? And we will cite a few examples. Obviously, there are many such problems
Yeah, yeah.
um, out there. So we'll focus on a few, and they're quite alarming, uh, as you would imagine. The one of the biggest problems that we already highlighted is the face recognition, right? So
Right.
one gentleman called Anupam Datta from
Yeah,
Kanpur,
right.
he
Yes.
did a research on, I think, on a hiring system, right? Where was it a
Yeah.
hiring system?
It was how Google show ads to its users.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. So yeah,
The
and
high-paying jobs were mostly being showed
offered to
to
the
males.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I also read something of that sort. So our data shows that uh, most of the software developers that uh, or developer positions that are offered in US are to a certain section of the society, which is to the white male people of white background
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
male, right?
Right.
And people of white color and gentlemen. Sorry. So um, and that's a clear bias there, correct? So
Exactly.
so that's, I think, this gentleman actually showed that. that when these AI systems are actually being implemented to um, to show different job searches, so job search results
Yeah,
to different
yeah.
candidates, it only showed certain positions to
The
male
high-paying positions, the CEO positions,
all
those
to them. I think
C sections, those C
yeah,
offices, the positions were shown only to the male candidates,
all to
mostly.
the white, yeah, all to the male candidates, and I think preferably to the white male candidates, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right.
And um, it's not exactly uh,
An intentional bias, I would say,
international bias, but because the problem is inherent in the
with the
data.
society. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's with the society because you see that it's quite obvious that the sex ratio of the employees who are working in this IT industry in high positions are correct or highly skewed.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
if
yeah,
Google is trying to learn from that pattern, so obviously it will
yeah.
show what the search results are reflecting.
Very true. Yep. And I think that's a clear problem, right? That's unavoidable
Yeah,
completely. So you are
yeah,
basically trying to sort of exacerbate the already existing bias in the society. So
exactly.
what has happened will continue happening,
Right.
right?
So I think this is one example of unsupervised learning.
Yes, yes. It's kind of yeah. It's again. I mean, we are again getting into a trajectory where we're getting into too much into
Technical
details. I think yeah,
details.
technical details.
Yeah, yeah,
Tell what
right.
exactly supervised and unsupervised is.
Yeah, yeah,
So so there are two types for those who are not really initiated to these topics.
yeah,
There are two types of learning generally, or three types rather. One is consupervised learning, where the developers actually tell the AI systems that um, they should be learning this, right? This is that. So this is how you should behave, or
yeah,
this is how you should respond to a situation, right? That's supervised. You're telling
yeah.
the software. You're actually dictating
Yes.
how an AI system will actually behave. The other one is unsupervised, obviously, where um, you let the system decide for itself,
Yeah,
right? So it kind of uh, using its mathematical calculations, statistical calculations, it kind of deciphers uh, what kind of environment it is in, and then takes an action, right?
yeah. So this is what we were discussing with the Google's example. So Google was just trying to learn or do a pattern matching with the data, with the raw data it was being fed with.
Correct. Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
No human supervision was there, so the inherent bias got injected automatically into the search results.
That's true. And the other one is called reinforcement learning, where it's like an AI system is actually trained um, based on a penalty system, right? So if
Yeah,
it is penalized if it sort of does a wrong or takes a wrong action, right? So it's a reward system, a reward and penalty system, right? So it's rewarded when it does a good thing, and it's penalized when it does a bad thing. And
right, right,
with time, it kind of learns and improves itself, right?
right, right.
So so
Or
that's
gives rise to the terminators.
yes, exactly, right? So so I think we discussed one. I think there are a couple of few more examples that we have in our kitty. So the other
Yeah,
example was I think the employment one. So uh, I think the employment we discussed the
yeah, yeah.
so
Another one was related to the criminalization of in the
yes,
court cases. Yeah, that was an
yes, so the
interesting one.
justice system
Yeah,
data.
this
So
is decision making in justice system. You can say something like that.
exactly. So um, I think it was reported in one of the news organizations called ProPublica, right?
Yes,
And they found that certain judicial decisions are being made based on uh, the recommendations done by a certain software, AI based software,
right.
and it was seen that most of the decisions that it was spitting out, this AI system was spitting out, what was inherently biased towards or biased against the black candidates, right?
Correct.
So how it was doing it, it was actually predicting that people from that background, from that section of society, are more
Yeah.
inclined to
They are more prone to commit crimes.
commit crimes in the future,
Yeah.
right, than their white counterparts or non-black
Yes.
counterparts,
Yeah.
right? Which is a clear problem and completely unethical,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
And this is based on, again, the historical data, because more people from the black community have been incriminated in the past. That's where
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
using its decisions from.
And that the historical data itself is quite biased, I think, because before, I mean, there was quite oppression of the black races earlier.
Exactly,
So
exactly. So I think that got inherently embedded in the model.
yeah.
Um, the other one is, I think, the creditworthiness that we talked about.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so there are lending companies that are using these softwares, these AI softwares, who
It's a
actually
predictive model of who they can easily give a loan to.
exactly. Um, so yeah, so when they use the softwares, often it is seen that this software is actually discriminating against the people of a certain age, right?
Right.
And especially to the elderly uh,
Yes.
candidates.
So it is simply considering that those who are beyond a certain age, they are incapable of repayment.
Yeah, repaying a loan, and that's so bad, such a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so you're clearly, and it's quite alarming, because um, again, I think it comes from the historical data that it was fed with. It has been seen that
Right.
after a certain age, are not able to repay
Yeah.
those loans, but that should not, preclude them
Yeah,
from.
I think in this case there is a basic flaw in the design of the AI model itself, because you cannot just make it only one based on one criteria, that the age of a person. It should be based on the lending capability, how the repayment history of a particular person, and then you take
That's
the decision.
no brainer, right? I mean, that's no
Yeah,
brainer. I mean, you should check what this person is actually doing right now,
right.
how he has repaid his loans in the past. And
Yes, yeah,
there are many other KPIs and metrics that we can uh,
yeah,
really take into account to judge the creditworthiness of a person, and that this
exactly.
alone, age alone, cannot be
Yeah, cannot be the
the
sole
highest,
criteria of
or the having the highest weightage
exactly. So
in the thing, right?
exactly.
That's clear bias there. And the other point was, I think, the healthcare system, right?
Hmm.
So um, there are already many AI systems in the healthcare industry, which actually, um, biases against, again, people of color, and
Hmm.
you know there are certain systems which actually predicts the black patients to be less prone to heart attacks.
Okay,
So
that's
that's a bad thing. Again, I mean,
yeah.
um, why I think it is because that black patients did not have that much access to healthcare before.
Yeah,
So
right.
the data is clearly imbalanced.
Exactly.
It's clearly imbalanced, and that's why this problem. So because there is a clear, uh, lack of data that
Hmm.
supports the uh, the black community's history uh,
Yeah,
of cardiac arrest and cardiac related diseases, you cannot just preclude them from your AI model or AI software. So, and this is all this is not all dystopia, though. I think that's
yeah.
quite
Of course, yeah.
to mention. There are a lot of good things that are happening. There are a lot of
Of
conversations
course,
happening
of
again
course.
to address this problem, right?
Yeah,
But I think there's a lot more initiative that needs to be taken, obviously, more than what's happening. I think we should, I think, highlight a few solutions that
yeah, of course.
being implemented or can be implemented, right?
Yeah, sure.
Um,
So I
so
think the first thing we can think of is like putting a system of checks and balances. So I think in order to like showcase the good things an AI system can do, people are rushing towards providing a solution and showcases that, okay, see what a marvel we have built, instead of actually giving equal attention to what all damages it can also inflict on the humanity.
exactly, I think this boils down to the fact that are these developers deliberating enough before they're
Right,
deploying, right? Do they know what they're doing in the first place? Do they have enough
right,
knowledge on the domain that they're working in, right? Or they're
right.
operating in? That's a very important thing to understand, right? Even for developers like us, I think
Yeah,
it's very
yeah,
important to know and understand the domain we are operating in and the problems that are inherent in that domain already, right?
right,
Um, we will only reflect the same or will only worsen the same biases and the problems that exist in that domain even further if we do not pay attention to that right at the get-go,
correct,
right?
correct,
So
absolutely.
I think
Yeah,
it's important that we understand that right at the inception of a project or a product
exactly,
process,
exactly. So, yeah,
and then lay out all the problems, right? These are the problems that are there.
yeah,
Discuss with the community, discuss with the domain experts there who are already
yes,
facing this, seeing this every day, I guess,
right,
and understand what the problems that these domains have. And the chances are that if these domains have those problems, the data that you have gathered from those domains or wherever you have sourced those data from will show the same sort of biases and discriminations.
correct,
That needs to be understood. And then when you're
absolutely.
doing the data engineering processes, data cleaning processes, and everything else, cleaning out the bad data, uh, removing class imbalances, all those things. When you're doing that, you
Yes,
keep those things in mind so that you have a very unbiased data to start with.
exactly.
I think it's already quite understandable that there's not enough deliberation on a developer's part or a development company's part to test these models, right? Uh,
Right.
so I think that needs to be taken into consideration and take.
Yes,
Right? So these models should be tested rigorously before the
exactly.
deployment and after the deployment. Before
Yeah,
deployment, you should understand and you know get back to your drawing board, understand what the problems were again, and if those problems are actually rearing their ugly face in your model,
right.
test them rigorously,
Yeah,
right? And then once the model is deployed, don't just let it be.
yeah, yeah.
Involved, uh, understand that if they're performing as expected, right?
Right.
um, and be open to criticism if there's a feedback that is coming from the community, from
Absolutely.
users, be open to it, right?
Yes, yes.
Be open to conversations
Yeah,
rather than being too obstinate about no, my model is the best model or my software is the best software. It cannot be, uh,
yeah,
right? So I think that's a key thing, to have an
yeah.
open mind uh,
Absolutely.
from the developers
Yeah, yeah,
perspective and also from the software company's perspective, to have an open mind
yeah, yeah.
and bringing in other stakeholders as well in the conversation, right? So
True.
the customers and the other well-meaning people, right? you know uh, be that philosophers, historians,
Yeah,
who
yeah,
have seen the
absolutely. Yeah,
society, study society more than a software engineer, right?
exactly.
um,
Exactly so.
Hear them out, hear their
Yeah,
concerns out, and try to take them into your consideration when you are developing
yeah,
or remodifying or rebuilding your
yeah, yeah,
softwares, right?
yeah,
So that's a key element
yeah.
there. Uh,
Another thing I think is to like what we were discussing a few minutes back, like more diversification of data is necessary. So it depends
exactly.
on the developer itself.
Yeah.
So either the developer has to take the responsibility of feeding the system with more diverse data, or you have to bring in developers from more diverse backgrounds so that you organically feed diverse data to the AI system. And in that way, those inherent biases will get automatically mitigated out.
I think, yeah, to avoid any kind of confirmation bias, right? So I,
Yes.
as a developer, might have certain biases and certain um, ideas in my mind, right?
Yeah, yeah. Every human being has. Every human being has. It's based upon his upbringing. You
Exactly.
cannot just
But you cannot
take
just
away from someone's personality.
very true. And that's where that's also where the problem lies, right? So I as a
Yeah,
developer might think that this is how the society should run. This is how the society
yeah,
should be.
yeah, yeah.
That may not be the right way of thinking.
Of
Uh,
course.
so again, being open, being uh, able to avoid certain kind of biases,
Right.
in yourself as well as a developer, will
Yeah.
also go a long way. And also, I guess, talking about again class imbalances or inherent biases in the data, I think there is always uh, a way to sort of solve those problems by creating synthetic data, right? So if you have
Right, right.
a clear, um, you know, dearth of diverse data, right? Create those data, the where
Absolutely.
the dearth is, you know, fill that
Gap.
gap,
Yeah,
creating synthetic data, right?
of
And
course.
technologies are quite popular these days. It's
Yeah, yeah,
no no niche anymore. So create those and solve those problems,
yeah.
right? I think the technology is there, the know-how is there, is the intent that's needed,
Exactly so. Yeah,
right? And instead of coming out with being in a rush to come out with your software and try
yeah.
to uh, sell your software or
Yes,
uh, in more numbers than your competitor or having the better profit uh,
yes.
in the market, I think it's important that you first get your house clean, you know,
Exactly.
uh, and then sort of take your software out there so that it actually helps the society at large.
Right,
That's
right,
what it's intended to do, right?
right.
Without
Exactly.
any,
Yeah,
and that's where we should be, focusing towards. Any other point that
absolutely.
that comes to mind that can really alleviate or address this problem?
No, that's all. I think we discussed most of them. I think there should be some system of checks and balances. It's like as simple as that. So, like whatever, like in software industry, in the pharma industry, we have these GXP guidelines, the
Right.
GMP practices. So, like some sort of thing should also be there for AI systems. I'm not sure whether they are already in place or not, but I think they are not.
I don't
So,
think so.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's a very
So,
good point. Yes. So yeah, I think when we produce our when we publish our softwares or when we publish our research papers, I think it's very important to sort of highlight the problems and the pitfalls.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. If even every research papers goes through peer review, lots of rounds of peer
exactly.
reviews before
Exactly.
getting published in a journal. So the same should get applied to an AI solution also,
Yeah, and
especially
clearly,
those which deals with something which are like quite critical to human lives.
very
Maybe
true.
something legal system or maybe a medical system, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And be come clean, on your problems, on the
Yeah,
pitfalls of the system, right? Publish
yeah,
them as well as disclaimers that these are the problems that the system
right.
may have, the biases that it may show, and that's okay, and that's a good thing, right? It's not,
Absolutely.
you should not be shy away. I should be shying away from publishing those things. So
Yeah,
that's something that we should really be encouraging these companies to do.
right.
Um, yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anything
Yeah,
else?
people learn from mistakes, and we are also learning.
Yeah,
But I hope we should not delay it some things so that it gets us to the humanity to a dystopian future as shown in the Matrix.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, right. And I think the government has to step up as well. The governments around the world
Yes.
to step up
Yes.
as well, because
Yeah.
these need to be sort of checked. Uh, I think the laws need to be brought to the mix, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Actually hold these companies accountable, right? They should be
Exactly.
providing anything or producing anything that is harmful to
Yeah,
this
yeah,
and to a country and humanity at large.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, the government action is also really, really needed. I think they are really lagging behind by,
Exactly. Yeah.
and so action from that side is also really important.
Absolutely.
Good, I guess. I think
Yeah.
we have discussed.
It was a good discussion. Yeah.
Yes. So we really encourage our audience to sort of participate. So please feel free to comment in the chat box, and we'll continue the conversation because this is not over.
Yeah.
And as AIs will keep proliferating in our lives, we'll see these problems more and more. So let's start a discussion, and when we go back to creating softwares or anything that we are doing, um, if we can keep these points in our mind, whether we are a user of AI or we are builders of AI, I think keeping these things in mind will really help us to create a better AI-enabled world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So
Yeah.
stay tuned
Yeah.
for many such topics that we'll bring for you,
Yes.
to you, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining in and listening to us. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks all. Bye.